So, closer to God. By God, I mean Aaron Berry. Same thing. How do we break free from our self-imposed tyranny and create heaven within? Fuck. I'm all ears, I'm intrigued about that. Keep in mind the general theme of this book, which is how to be closer to God. I will continue my endeavour to shed a little light upon a few other facets of our human nature which may become valuable allies in our quest. Bearing in mind that the kingdom of God is within us all, potentially, if only we can create fertile ground for it to flourish. Let us once again try to pinpoint what that means and what it feels like. To become emotionally free from the trappings of subjective negative energy, we must let everything go. We must find the inner calm to let all unwanted emotional energy directed at us simply wash over us. Also, we must vastly restrict or completely nullify the production of opposing forces generated within ourselves via our unwholesome thoughts and negative resident energy forms. Only if we can achieve this will we be within the required realm of creating our very own nirvana or heaven, the kingdom within. Hello. It's so beautiful to have these little dudes just hanging around me. My little friends, they all know me. It is essential that we eliminate any vestige of negative, unproductive judgment, hate, jealousy, envy, regret, angst, desire, lust, etc. The list is potentially depressingly inexhaustive, and consequently there are far too many traits to list here. But most of us will recognise them when we encounter them due to the energy they carry. Each one of those traits has its hallmark of a negative feeling that pertains to it, and they are all destructive to our end game of inner peace. As long as we harbour any of those traits, we will never be free. As a result, we will keep ourselves bound in shackles of misery, which to the average person is hardly discernible because they have never been without them. But when we begin to evict what I call our unwanted guests from our house of God, we start to feel the significant difference. It is akin to living in a house with about 50 disrespectful, problematic, unruly people. The house is chaotic because so many varying energy forms are reacting to each other like free radicals. One day the hater takes the floor, the next day the self-righteous dude, then the selfish girl demands a living room to herself and her boyfriend until the jealous guy throws a tantrum. One after the other, free radical destructive energy forms running wild and unconstrained. This is the average human mind until we finally say enough is enough and get down to some serious spiritual practice, self-discipline and meditation. The road is long and there are no shortcuts, but the path is increasingly rewarding and worthwhile. I'll now be speaking from my personal travelled path, which stretches back almost 14 years, and so I have learnt a thing or two about me, I, myself, ego, spirit and soul. Each time we isolate and evict one of the troublesome tenants, we free up a room in our house to add to our haven of tranquility. Ultimately, we want all of our rooms back from the squatters, because once we have cleaned and decorated each vacant room, we will very carefully select new tenants of vastly higher quality, i.e., we will rent one room out to peace, another will be let to purity, the next we will offer to dedication, and another to stillness, love, compassion, etc. We will continue until all of our rooms are rented to the best quality versions of ourselves, sublets. Doing this spiritual psychological work takes years. So we mustn't have any misconception about instant turnarounds. It's only been recently that my house has become what I now finally am at peace with. It was a long haul of spiritual devotion to evict all of my parasitical, disruptive, freeloading, unwanted spirits. So, in lots of chapters in my book, I use metaphor and illustrations to make it more interesting. So when I'm speaking about our house, it's the Carl Jung, Jungian terminology for our consciousness, because he asserted that our consciousness is very much like a house, and everything within it pertains to our everyday living. And so if we have our house, which has been neglected and has been left open as a free-for-all, lots of you will remember movies, and one in particular springs to mind. It was with Steve McQueen. I think it was the movie Bullet. He lived in this house where people just used to use it and keep there and casually convene there, and he often wasn't there, and then when he came back he'd see people that he didn't even know, and they'd go, hey, how are you doing? Cool. And they're rolling up a spliff and, you know, all this sort of stuff, and he's like, who the fuck are these people? But he couldn't be bothered to do anything about it, and so he'd just leave again. But if we don't take mastery over our own homes, our own houses, and we let free radicals enter, squatters, people who aren't paying any rent, they don't have a contract with you, and you don't know who they are, they're just freeloaders, well, they'll be doing drugs and prostitution and all different sorts of other criminal activities, and they will be defiling the rest of the people in the house, because it all rub off. And it wasn't too long ago that I was living temporarily in one of these sorts of houses. It was a house with 9 rooms, 9 bedsteads, and so I went to stay in one of these rooms, and there was a heroin addict in one, there was a lesbian and her girlfriend in another, there was a crack cocaine dealer in another, there were a few other non-beings, drifters, which had packing jobs, you know, immigrants, foreigners just coming over to work 12 hours a day packing chickens, and you know, the house was a mess. The kitchen was vile and disgusting, nobody had respect for anybody or anything, and that's what happens. And that's what happens to our minds, people, when we don't pay attention, when we let everything go feral. But if we decide that we are going to get closer to God, then we decide then that we need to have a look at everything that's going on in our lives, and the first port of call is our homes. And so we look at our home because our home is a direct reflection of our consciousness. And so you look at our home, and if it's filthy, disgusting, dishevelled, unkempt, disorganised, and all the rest of the things, well, you need to bring about changes. And then we have to look at the people we're sharing our home with. Are we happy with the partner? Are we just staying there for simplicity because we think it's easy, but there's no joy, there's no love, there's no respect, it's all gone. We have to change all these things. How many people have got the gumption, the tenacity, the power to actually change these things, to come back one day and say, oh, to serve notice on everybody, say, yeah, I'm giving you all notice. You give them all notice, even the partner that you're living with, give them notice, and then when they've finally gone, then you fumigate all the rooms, and then you redecorate and you refurnish, and then you advertise for quality tenants, and you want to see references, and you want to see professional people, and then you vet them, yeah? Well, this is what we do with our own home. Only if we have got, like, you know, deception living in one room, we've got liar living in another room, and we've got like someone that's highly promiscuous in another room. All these are traits of ourselves. We decide that we don't want to partake in those anymore, and so we evict all those, and then we go, well look, there's going to be no room rented out to a prostitute, and so let me rent that room out to celibacy. Let me try what that's like for a while. So you rent one of your rooms out to celibacy, and this is what I've done for the past 14 years. And I haven't looked back. I seriously haven't looked back. Don't get involved in any of that nonsense anymore. No, I can't think of any reason why I would want to get involved in that. I'm now living in bliss because of that. Then you look at yourself and you think, well, okay, there was a part of me that used to be argumentative and, you know, used to want to pursue arguments and things like that. These days, I don't do that. You know, these days, I will cut it to the chase very, very quickly. I will, you know, maybe on occasion make one video to see what other people feel about that. But if I don't even think that's going anywhere, then I'll just cut it. I'll just throw them in the snake pit, cancel them from the not give it any more energy. Just continue, you know, with the better energy on the channel. And so we do all this with lots of facets of what we are. We have to look at ourselves, people. We have to be honest, and we have to go, well, look, that part isn't fair enough for you. Oh, what about the fat bloke? Yeah, was a fat bloke living in my house? Well, in actual fact, let me talk about me. There wasn't a fat bloke. There's never been a fat bloke living in my house. There was a cocaine snorter. There was an all-night partier. There was a very promiscuous bar girl entertainer. There were lots of these facets which most certainly weren't healthy and were taking me down the wrong path, and so I had to change all of those. And so over the years I've changed them all, and now all of my rooms in my home are rented out to high quality spirits. There is the meditator, there is the nature observer, there is the cook and the dietitian, there is the scholar, the person that wants to educate themselves every day. Then there is the articulator and the paying forward of the information. Then there is the person that works out cardiovascularly, and then in a more physical way in the gym. So of course we have to keep ourselves both cardiovascularly fit and muscularly fit, and so they are two different ends of the spectrum. So by the time we've done all this, then we have a beautiful home, and it's tranquil and it's peaceful and it's respectful, and it's the sort of place whereby God will come to pay you a visit. Like Jesus comes to pay me a visit, God comes to pay me a visit, angels come to pay me a visit. Yes. And in my life, when I have got things wrong, then Satan's come to pay me a visit. And so, by the time you've had all these characters knocking on your door, you've worked a thing or two out. And when we have done that, we are dwelling within the kingdom of God, because God comes to dwell within our home. And this is the whole thing, you see. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to waste away our whole lives in the hope that we're going to go into God's kingdom. No. What we do, we present our world like many animals do. Look at nature. They build their nests and their warrens and this, that and the other, make it ship-shape, and then the female comes along, she inspects if everything's in order. And if everything's in order, then there's a family commence. If it's not in order, then they go away. And some of you, if you watch these weaver birds, they build these nests out of long grasses, and they weave these like wicker baskets hanging from branches in the trees, and the female will come and inspect, and if the male has 2 or 3 females inspect and turn it down, he will take every single piece of it to pieces again, down to the skeleton, and he'll start again, because he realized his error, you see. So nature does it, but we have to do the same. We have to realise our errors, we have to go back to ground zero, and we have to start again. You see, there's no point in, you see, these weaver birds, there's no way that they were going to get away with like bodging it up and just like patching up here and there, because the females are not stupid. They're like, no, you've not put the attention to detail into it. It's not strong enough, it's not secure enough, it's not going to protect our young, and so I'm not taking a chance with you when there's lots of other males around that are doing the right thing. And so that's what we do, people. We create our kingdom of God within, and then God comes to reside with us. And we will notice if we start to act a little bit devilishly, then God will vacate, and then we'll find ourselves alone without the Christos. So then we have to stop being little devils, and then we invite once again the Christos to return, and that's what happens. So that's just on 1.5 pages. There's 700 pages in there, people, and I could speak like that about every single one of those pages. What is wrong with you people? You haven't gone rushing to purchase it. It's cram-packed full of cosmic wisdom. But of course, I realise that most of my viewers are muggles. What can I expect? Doesn't matter. You're not ready to receive. And those of you that have received, well, what of it? What of it? It's time to start conveying. What have you learned? You see, if you've read that, what did you make of that? You should come forward and say, look, I'm on page 322. I didn't really take much of it, to be fair. What can you enlighten me to? What have I missed? And I'll tell you. And you'll be shocked to the core. Absolutely shocked to the core.